Okay, we're on page 250. Shlomo is your name? Shlomi. Shlomi asked an excellent question yesterday. If you remember, he asked, join us, have a chumash, join us. It's like a sufganiyah. You open it up and some jelly comes out, so something sweet comes out inside. Shlomi asked an excellent question yesterday about why the brothers were allowed to drink with Yosef if they kept the entire Torah. Right, and we have there is an approach that the brothers kept the entire Torah, so why were they able to drink with Yosef? So I spoke to somebody about it. I looked around for it. I have three different answers. Answer number one, and probably the most basic answer, is that they're in a situation of pikuach nefesh, because you can't turn down the king. The king tells you to drink, you drink, and if they're refusing the king in those days, you get killed. You see a guy who dropped a fly in his guy who dropped a stone in a piece of cake, got hung. Mm-hmm. Right, the baker was hung because there was a stone in the cake. They played for keeps. There was no parole in those days. There was no such thing as parole. Parole means, they let you out, and once a month you come into the police station. Hi, Jerry. And then and then you go out and rob another bank. There's no parole. In those days, it was there was one punishment. It's basically death. So it's a pikuach nefesh situation. Number one, that's probably the most basic answer. Answer number two is that the Medrash says that that when they went in to eat the meat, Menashe showed them that he shechted it properly, and that he took out the aver min achai, that he took out the gid hanoshe. That's what the Medrash says. So it could be, we were speculating, it could be that once he showed them that the meat was kosher, they could make an assumption that the wine is kosher as well. And that's what the Medrash says, which is a possibility. Possibility number 3, I'll get to 1 second. Possibility number 3, which I think is a very strong possibility, is that there is an opinion that even according to the opinion that the Avos kept the entire Torah, but they did not keep it in Chutz La'aretz. They kept the Torah only in Eretz Yisrael. Here they were in Egypt, which is Chutz La'aretz. So there is an opinion like that. That's why Yaakov was able to marry 2 sisters, because he was in Chutz. According to why did Yaakov marry 2 sisters? Because he kept the entire Torah, because he only kept it in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. So according to that answer, it would work very well. It would work very well that they only kept it in Chutz La'aretz. They only kept it in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz, and therefore they were able to what do you call it? Okay? Yeah, that's what we're going to answer.
So pretty much the only thing that we were obligated on as far as kashrus was the gid hanashe at this point?
At this point, it was the gid hanashe, and even that there's an opinion that there wasn't, the Torah only writes it here, but it wasn't mandatory until Har Sinai. That's when it's only Torah's writing why it was, right? And so there's another opinion that they kept the entire Torah. Whatever the case, I left you with a question yesterday, which was, why it says Vayigash elav Yehuda v'yomer bi Adoni yadaber no avdecha dover be'oznei Adoni v'yichar apcha be'avdecha ki chamocha kavara. Page 250. So Yehuda comes and he takes up the battle now, and then he goes through an entire what do you call it, a review of the entire conversation, which Ramban says it's not clear why he went over the whole thing again. But the question, it was, why did Yehuda feel now's the time to fight? I mean, Binyamin got caught. He got caught with the goblet. You're a thief, and you're claiming. Oh yeah, is it good?
I'm just straightening it out. You can continue though.
Maybe I'm awkward. Maybe I'm crooked. No. Maybe I'm cockeyed. It's good?
No, Rabbi.
Is that good?
You look good.
Oh, you look good. Okay. So it could be that maybe this should be a little higher. No, that's what it is. Oh, now I'm balanced to this side. it could be that Binyamin stole the goblet. You caught him, so he's the thief. So throw him in prison. What's Yehuda hacking about? What are you talking about? The guy stole a goblet. And I said, you guys didn't, so go home. What are you getting so upset about? And why are you all of a sudden righteous indignation? All of a sudden there's righteous indignation here. And the commentaries explain, you see, all along the brothers felt that whatever they're going through, and there's a lot of confusion here, being accused of being spies and then sent back and forth, and then everything they're going through, they felt is an atonement. They felt they had it coming to them because, after all, they did sell Yosef, and they felt that they're being what's the expression, called across the carpet? Is there an expression? No, dragged across the carpet is the vacuum cleaner. When you take somebody, when you're called across the carpet, meaning that you're now you're accountable for your misbehavior. I think it's called being called across the carpet. So dragged across the carpet is when they're pulling you out of a bar, Itamar. This is called across the carpet. So called across the carpet is so the brothers felt that this is retribution for having sold Yosef, and that whatever's happening, we've got it coming to us. And all of a sudden, there's an accusation on Binyamin. Binyamin wasn't even there for the sale. Binyamin wasn't even there. Binyamin wasn't there, and now this is happening. It's got to be trumped up charges. That means that you're not playing fair. Now, let's get this straight. And Yehuda gets upset. And Yehuda goes and he faces off with Yosef. And the Medrash says when the two kings went at it, because Yosef is the king right now, and Yehuda is the king of the Jewish people eventually, right? The Dovid HaMelech comes from the tribe of Yehuda, and right now the brothers see him as the king. He took responsibility for Binyamin. He's the one who, he became the king. Shimon and Levi are they got criticized by Yaakov. Reuven has long since been removed. Yehuda's the leader. And so when the Medrash says when the two kings went at it, the other brothers trembled. Right? The brothers trembled in awe watching the two kings, they go at it. But that, it sounds like, wow, and the Medrash describes, all sorts of, physical feats of demonstrating anger and strength and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, why are they called the two kings? Why are the Yehuda and Yosef called the two kings? And the answer is because the ultimate king is somebody who rules over himself. To rule other people is easy. To rule over other people is easy. All you got to do is bring in some tanks. Bring in some tanks. Go overpower them. To rule over ourselves, that makes you a king. To rule yourself. What did Yosef do? He obviously rules over himself. The incident with Mrs. Potiphar. What did Yehuda do? He admitted in public that he was the father. Can you imagine, guys? You got to remember what Yehuda did. There was a paternity suit. And instead of fighting the paternity suit, Yehuda got up and he said in public, I'm the father. I got her pregnant. How difficult that was to do. That means you rule over yourself. That's what qualifies you to be a king. And as a king, and by the way, the Gemara in Sota says that when Paro appointed Yosef, last week's Parsha, Paro appointed Yosef. And the Mitzrayim were not happy about that. They said, hey, yo. Well, they probably didn't say yo, because you didn't say yo to Paro, right? But they said, what's going on? We have bylaws over here, and the bylaws here say that no Hebrew could become a ruler in Egypt. No Ivri could be a ruler here. And Paro said to them, the Gemara in Sota says, he said to them the following words, Ginune malchus ani roebo. I see that he's got royal tendencies. Now we understand royal tendencies means you know how to deal. You're very diplomatic and you're very articulate, and you know how to the right things to say, and you have a certain dignity. That's how we understand it. He says, I see royal tendencies. He's got the ability to be a king. But at a deeper level, what Paro is saying is royal tendencies because he's the guy who rules over himself. I see that he's the guy who, if he could rule over himself, he could rule over a country. And therefore the two kings go at it over here, and that's the battle between Yehuda and Yosef. Okay, so he goes through this entire what's it called when you make your own speech? A soliloquy? Is that what it's called? He goes through the whole thing. And we had something like that in English class once, but I don't remember what it meant. It's in Shakespeare. Okay. Oh, that explains why I don't know it. Yeah. We did Shakespeare. I think we did Hamlet in senior year. Right. But, whoever Mr. Cliffs is, or Cliff's Notes, did you guys have that in Australia? Cliff's Notes? Yeah. To this day, I'd like to meet him. I got Hakura Satov to Mr. Cliff. He got me through school. And the teachers always said, don't read the Cliff's Notes. It won't help you. Oh, yeah, here I am. Oh, it helped, all right. Not only that, I suspect that's all the teachers read also. Who had the patience to read Crime and Punishment, my goodness, Boy,
That's the punishment.
if ever a book was appropriately titled, that was the one. You know, I always wonder when we read Crime and Punishment, like, what did I do to deserve that? What was my crime that I deserved this punishment? So what do you call it? Okay, so then Yehuda finishes. Look at the bottom line. He finishes and he says, second line from the bottom. Ve'ata kivoi elavdecha avi. When I come back to your servant, my father, ve'anar einenu itanu, and the young man is not with us. V'nafsho kshura b'nafsho. Yaakov's life is dependent on his life. V'hoya kiroso ke'ein hanar, page 252. V'meis, he'll die. V'oridu avdecha sevas avdecha b'yoga avinu b'yoga shola. So Yehuda is saying to Yosef, listen, I won't even have, you're telling me that Binyamin will be in prison, so go tell your father I'm just holding him as a prison. I'm not going to have that chance. Because as soon as he sees we show up and Binyamin is not there, as soon as he sees Binyamin is not with us, I'm not going to have a chance to explain. That's why it says, V'haya kiros avdecha, kirosa, as soon as he sees that Binyamin is not here, Vames, he's going to die. I won't have a chance to explain to him. And therefore, not going back with him is not an option. There are two options here. Option number one is that you give him to me, and option number two is that I kill you and take him. Those are the two options. There is no third option here. And by the way, gentlemen, this is an important approach to life when you're raising a family, is often to make things clear to your kids, sometimes to your wife, but generally she's the one who makes it clear to you. But you make it clear to your kids that there are two options here. Either you are going to clean the backyard, or you are going to get involved in straightening out the house. Those are the two. To not do anything is not an option at this point. We are cleaning for Pesach now. You are going to either take care of the yard, or take care of the back room, or you're going to take care of the front room. But to take care of no room is not an option. Now you have a choice. The only one who has that, a third option, is me, right? Because I'm the supervisor, right? But you do not have that option. And by the way, when I get into cabs, I don't know if you ever, it's just a piece of advice. Sometimes you get into a cab, the cab driver says, okay, how much you want to pay? Right? If you ever say to a guy, they don't want to turn on the meter because then they have to pay tax. Right? They don't want it to register on the meter. So they will give you, and by the way, you are, by law in Israel, you're allowed to set a price with the driver. The problem is if you don't know the routes well, so you don't know what the price should be set. So sometimes when I spend a good part of my life is spent in cabs. And what I say to the driver says, how much is it? So I know more or less. I'll say to the driver, 60 shekels or the meter, whichever you want. Give him the choice. And then he's got to decide which one. So instead of me being pressured, 60, 70, 75, instead of 60 or the meter. Those are your choices. There's no third choice here. So I had one guy once, I said to him, 60 or the meter. He said, now why not 70 or the meter? I was speechless.
What did he think?
I don't remember. At the end of the day, I'll tell the guy, and usually they pick the price. 60 or the meter. Once in a while, they say, and by the way, even if you do set a price, just to be a decent person. So I set a price with the guy the other day. I said the price was, I think, 65. And we got caught in a whopper of a traffic jam, right? So, by rights, you could pay him 65. That was the price we set. But you got to be, at the end of the day, the guy's not doing it for entertainment. The guy's doing it for his parnasa. He's losing time, and he feels yucky. And if you're a mensch, you say, listen, I'm going to add on to it. And by the way, sometimes they're adding on even 5 shekels. This guy added on 15 shekels because we were caught in a nice, what do you call it? But even to add on 5 shekels, because the guy feels that he's not been taken. It's not even the question of the money. You just feel you've been taken. So give the guy 5 shekels for the field. If I told you you could pay 5 shekels, for 5 shekels, I'll sell you the merit of a Kiddush Hashem. Would you buy it for 5 shekels? Yeah. Okay, so you could pay a cab driver. 5 shekels to make a Kiddush Hashem. Even though you don't have to. Even though by rights you don't have to. Sometimes it happens, the guy says 45, I'll say 40. And you go, all right. And he drives. Then in the end, I'll give the 45 anyway, just so the guy should be happy. So the guy should be, what's the 5 shekels? What's 5 shekels? If you stop and think, you're making a Kiddush Hashem. But if you give people choices, so Yehuda makes it clear to Yosef, there are 2 choices here. Either you give him to us willingly, or we're going to kill you and we're going to take him. but we are not going up without, we're not leaving here without Binyamin. Those are your choices. Okay. So look what happens now, and take a look at now the drama begins. 252, 6 lines from the top. V'lo yochol Yosef lehisapek l'chol hanitzavin olav. Yosef could not hold himself back in front of all the people standing there. Vayikra, he calls out, Hotziu kol ish me'alai, get everybody out of here. V'lo amar ish ito b'yizvada Yosef alachav. No man was there when Yosef revealed himself to his brothers. Now, when it says he couldn't hold himself back, there are 2 approaches. When you say he couldn't, what does the word he couldn't mean?
He was unable to.
He couldn't or he was unable to. There are 2 possibilities. The standard meaning is he was not able to. He was so emotionally overcome at this point, hearing his brothers and hearing Yehuda plead for Binyamin, and understanding that they no longer have resentment against the sons of Rachel. They sold Yosef as a son of Rachel. They're now willing to go to bat and die for the son of Rachel. Yosef is overwhelmed with emotion. You're talking about the man of self-control. You talk about the ultimate man of self-control. If Yosef could not hold back his emotions, as you can imagine, it's a very emotional moment now. If Yosef was the man, the paradigm of self-control, the paragon of self-control, and he can't hold himself back, so you can imagine how emotionally powerful this moment was. That's approach number 1. Approach number 2 is Yosef couldn't hold back because Yosef understood that there could be trouble here. Because Yehuda said, Paro made it very clear earlier, when he appointed Yosef to a position, he said, you're going to run the country. Rak hakisei egdal mimeka. The only one who outranks you is me. What did Yehuda say in the opening sentence? He said, Ki chamocha kapara, I see you like Paro. That could be translated as the act of rebellion. You are like Paro in my eye. Oh, whoa, you can't say that. It sounds like, if I don't object to that, and I don't make this clear what's really going on, that could be a sign it's tacit approval of what you've said, and that is a sign that's rebellion against Paro. So v'lo yochol, according to some commentaries, v'lo yochol Yosef leisapek means he can't afford to hold back now, because he's going to have to make things clear. And what does he do? Yosef does something which is basically suicide. He says, get everybody out of here. He's got all these armed guards. Could you imagine the President of the United States? You got 10 angry men in the room with the President of the United States, and he says, okay, I want all the Secret Service guys out of the room. And he's going to stay alone with these guys? The President of the United States, he's got 10 angry Democrats in the room, 10 angry Republicans with the Democratic president, or 10 angry Democrats with a Republican president, and he says, get all the Secret Service guys out of the room. Right? Yeah, that's so crazy. Yeah, when Bill Clinton was in Israel, this is funny. Bill Clinton was in Israel, and the Israelis offered to provide security for him. And the Americans said, no, thank you. We got our Secret Service guys. We're not, okay. So he was staying in the King David Hotel. That's where the president always stays. He's staying in the King David Hotel, and there were a crowd of people who wanted to see the president of the United States. And at a certain point, he was in a room, and the Secret Service guys were holding the crowd out. The American Secret Service guys. But what they weren't aware of was there was a side door to this room. And all of a sudden, the side door opens, and a crowd of falafel-eating Israelis comes pouring in and surrounded Bill Clinton. He was away. They couldn't get them, I think, about 10 minutes. The Secret Service guys couldn't get them. That was a major, what do you call it? And he's got tchina all over him. And he's, that's worse than being shot. And he's what do you call it? You're alone with a crowd of people. That's considered a dangerous situation. Here's Yosef says, I want everybody out. And he's willing to risk his life. Why? Why? For one reason. He doesn't want his brothers to be humiliated when he reveals who he is. There's going to be a moment of shame and embarrassment over here when Yosef reveals himself to his brothers. He does not want anybody in the room to see his right. And for that reason, he's willing to risk everything that his brothers should not be put to shame. So he says, get everybody out of here. V'lo amar ish. Nobody was there when he revealed himself. Vayiten es kolo bivchi. He starts crying. Vayishmu Mitzrayim, Vayishma Beis Paro. He cries. Paro hears about it, Mitzrayim hears about it, and the house of Paro hears about it. Different opinions. He was crying so loud it penetrated the walls of Paro's palace, which is far away. That's how much he cried. Plain meaning is he cried and word got out, Yosef is crying. Okay? Now, Paro hears about it. Vayomer Yosef Alechav. Yosef says to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I'm Yosef, is my father still alive? Probably the most dramatic moment in the entire Torah. Vayomer Yosef Alechav, Ani Yosef, I'm Yosef, is my father still alive? V'lo yochlu echav la'anosa so ki nivhalu mipanav. His brothers couldn't answer because they were frightened from his presence. The first question here is, why is the first thing he says, I'm Yosef, is my father still alive? They just told him he's alive. They've been talking about the father all along. The answer is because at one point Yehuda said, well, one brother died. Now Yosef knows that that's not true because he's the brother that Yehuda was talking about. So there's as a Mark Twain, there were once rumors that Mark Twain died. And Mark Twain said, he put out a public announcement. Somehow Mark Twain put out, the rumors of my demise are grossly exaggerated. Right? So Yosef knows when a guy is saying to him that he died, Yosef knows that that's not true. Right? No. He's pinching himself. No, I'm alive. So he's worried that the same way that he lied to him about himself, maybe he didn't tell him the truth about Yaakov either. And therefore his first question, Ani Yosef, is my father still alive? And the brothers couldn't answer. So you have one of the most famous statements, one of the most famous midrashim, and one of the most famous explanations from the Beis HaLevi on this pasuk. The Medrash says, Oy lanu miyom hadin. The word oy, you ever hear oy? Oy is a word, right? It's a word that appears in Tanakh. Oy is exactly how we use it in Yiddish. Oy. Right? Oy vey. The expression oy vey is really because the pasuk says oy lemi avoy. Who groans oy and avoy? And then just oy avoy just became oy vey. Right? So when you're Zaidi, you used to sit down in a seat and you would kind of go oy vey. Right, like that in the seat. So you thought that was just a Yiddish krecht, right? It's actually a word. In the Medrash, the pasuk initially says, who groans? Who's groaning? Oy vey. People who spend too much time drinking. And then they end up with a hangover and they go, oy vey. That sort of thing. That's where it comes from. The Medrash says, oy lanu miyom hadin, woe to us from the day of judgment. Oy lanu miyom hatochecha, woe to us on the day of rebuke. If Yosef's brothers could not respond to Yosef, and he's a king of flesh and blood, all the more so when we're faced with the ultimate truth after 120 years, we're going to be speechless. We think, most people think very superficially, after 120 years, God's going to say this, and I'll say this, and I'll ask me why you did this, and I'll say this, and everything, okay, you go to Gan Eden. Right? That's how we think the conversation is going to go. Why did you do this? Why didn't you do this? I was like this, and he was like this. What's going to happen is that there's a flash, an intense flash of ultimate truth. The person is facing the truth. And if you couldn't answer to Yosef's rebuke, so how are you possibly going to answer to God's rebuke? That's what the Medrash says. If you can't even, brothers couldn't respond to Yosef, how are we going to respond to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That's what the Medrash says. Oy lanu miyom hatochecha. It means it's intense. The Beis HaLevi asks a very famous question here. He says, the Medrash says, whoa, if Yosef's brothers couldn't stand up to his rebuke, do you see any rebuke in this pasuk? Didn't say a word about selling him. Didn't say a word about the sale. Didn't say a word about anything. Where's the rebuke? All he said was, Ani Yosef my Yosef, my father's still alive. And the brothers couldn't answer him. Where's the rebuke?
It's implied. I'm still alive. Look at me. I'm still alive. I'm still here. It's obvious. Like this, the first thing you would ask is, why would you do this? He doesn't even need to say it, to the brothers.
Okay, you're close. What do you say, Shlomi?
I think the words ha'or vichai is the rebuke.
Why is that a rebuke?
Because you're so worried about
Excellent.
your brother
Excellent.
Don't worry about your own
Very good. In other words, you're coming here and telling me now you got this whole song and dance about, oh, we got to bring Binyamin home because the father won't survive the shock, this and that. I'm Yosef. My father's still alive? How come you weren't worried about this 22 years ago? You're so worried about Yaakov, you weren't worried about it 22 years ago. Why are you so worried about it now? That's the rebuke. The words ha'od avichai are the rebuke. Exactly what you're saying. You're all of a sudden you're worried about the old man. The old man's not going to handle the shock. Then you weren't worried about it. Still alive, you weren't worried about it then. But there's a depth to it. The ultimate rebuke in life is not, well, why didn't you put on tefillin this way? That's not a rebuke. It's a rebuke. The ultimate rebuke is when you're caught in a self-contradiction. Why didn't you buy tefillin? Oh, $1,000 for little black boxes, it's a lot of money. You bought another little black box that cost $1,000 that you had no problem putting the money out for, right? Why did you make it to Minyan this morning? Well, 7 o'clock in the morning, you get up at 7 o'clock for Minyan. Yesterday you got up 7 o'clock to play tennis. You had no problem, right? Why don't you give tzedakah? Oh, yeah, that's a lot of money to spend to give away money for tzedakah. You have no problem paying for sushi at a fancy restaurant, overpaying for sushi, and taking an overpriced vacation, and buying an overpriced car, even though your car is perfectly good. What, all of a sudden you can't spend money on tzedakah? That self-contradiction is that's the ultimate rebuke. The ultimate rebuke is why don't you do it? I don't have the energy. You got the energy for that. How come you don't have the energy for that? That's the ultimate. The brothers could not answer him. Now, at a deeper level, the commentaries point out that, first of all, put yourself in the brother's position. You're completely baffled what's going on. This guy knows all about us. He knows who we are. He keeps sending us back and forth. What is going on? And Yosef says 2 words. Ani Yosef. And that was like, oh. You ever been in a movie? One of these intrigue movies, spy intrigue movies, and you're really clueless till that last scene. And you're absolutely clueless. And as that last scene happens, you're just like, when this is happening, I used to read Agatha Christie books. I don't know if any of you have ever read. I don't know if any of you ever read. Right. And I didn't say I read Agatha Christie. I said I don't know if any of you have ever read. Right. But assuming you've read, other than reading your text messages, right? So the Agatha Christie books were classic. That until the last page, you did not fit. And I worked on it, and she got me every time. I never copped her. I never got it. I never got it right. And all of a sudden on that last page, there's just a series of, there's a reason she sold 2 billion books, right? It's like that movie, and on that last scene, you're just like, Right? Ever see those movies? You go out to the parking lot. There's always one guy who's got his foot up on the car. The other guy's explaining, no, he was a bad guy. Oh, he was. You mean he was with? Yeah. I didn't know that. No. But what about her? No, she was bad. Oh, I didn't understand. He was a good guy? I thought he would. No, he was a good guy. I was always that guy. I was always the guy. I was the guy. Somebody was always explaining it to me post movie. I just didn't understand it. I needed somebody to explain. And I had a friend who, from the minute the movie started, it was one of these guys. He's going to get killed. He's a bad guy. He's a good guy. She's evil. And they know. And he got the whole thing. Yosef with 2 words. With 2 words, he explained. I didn't even understand Rocky. So with two words, Yosef, he says, Ani Yosef, and the whole picture becomes clear. So the Chafetz Chaim says, if with two words from a human being, everything became clear. 2 words, Ani Yosef, everything became clear. Says the Chafetz Chaim, we live our lives with all sorts of questions. Why did this happen? Why didn't this happen? How come I went through that? How come I didn't go get what I wanted here? When a person all of a sudden is exposed to the ultimate truth, Ani Hashem, with one where all of a sudden a person sees, there's a famous story There's a famous story about a guy was nifter. I think it's with the Rambam. And the Rambam, somebody was on his deathbed. And the Rambam said, when you die, when you pass away, I want you to come back to me in a dream. I think it was with the Rambam. I want you to come back to me in a dream. I have 3 questions. My question, one halachic question this, one halachic question that, and I have one more thing. All these, why the righteous suffer, why the wicked prosper, why is that happening? So the guy dies, and he comes back to the Rambam in a dream. I think if I'm getting the story, it was the Rambam. And he says, okay, the answer to your first question is this. The answer to your second question is this. The Rambam said, yeah, but what all those other things that happened that we don't understand, I asked you, told you to ask that. He says, I'll tell you the truth, I was going to ask it. But the closer I got to God's throne, all of a sudden I realized I don't have any questions at all. Because that's what, ultimately, we'll understand everything. And if Yosef, the Chafetz Chaim says, if Yosef with 2 words could make them understand, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu with just revealing himself in everything's going to become clear. Okay, we have to stop now because there's the what do you call it, in the shindig.